Roll.
Sure, I'm good.
But I'm also looking at this.
Jess, you ready to
where it
go?
does still go through,
Okay.
which this is the new packet.
Yeah, but this is the revision.
Was that what they had sent
Yeah,
over?
okay, all right.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And on behalf of the Village of Cary and the Board of Zoning, Planning, and Appeals, we'd like to hereby call this meeting to order on this Thursday, September the 12th, 2019, at approximately 7:30 p.m. We have a quorum of members, and at this time, I'd like to ask our Director of Community Development, Mr. Brian Simmons, to please call the roll.
Williams,
Present.
Pippin,
Here.
Graziano, O'Laughlin,
Here.
Kretschmer,
Here.
Jasper,
Here.
Corey.
Here. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we invite you to rise with us for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks very much, everyone. So before we begin the first two cases, gentlemen, I just want to double check that you have all the information. You'll recall that we received some electronic messages from Mr. Simmons, and I think he did provide it here at the dais for you. So before I call on a voice vote on the last couple of meeting minutes, does anyone have any questions on items 1 or 2 on the meeting minutes dated August the 22nd, 2019? Okay, on ZPA case 07001, on a voice vote, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. And on a voice vote on ZPA case 08001, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much, gentlemen. So, folks, I recognize some of your faces here, and we have a new petitioner. So I just, for the benefit of the new petitioner, who I think is here from McDonald's, just want to outline the case for yourself. There is someone here from McDonald's?
I'm with Identity Services.
Okay, perfect. So thank you very much and welcome. The way the process will work, sir, I'm Patrick, nice to meet you.
I'm Brian.
Hi, Brian, nice to meet you. The way the process works is that we ask another Brian to outline the case for us, and then we may have some questions for Mr. Simmons. And then upon conclusion, we ask you to present any additional information you may have about your petition. And members of the ZPA, Zoning Planning Appeals, may have questions for yourself. Once we conclude that portion, those that are assembled here are allowed to speak. When you approach the microphone, remember to state your name and address for the record. This proceeding is recorded, and it does get placed on the village website, so those that are not in attendance can view it. And once we close that portion of the public comments section, the ZPA members themselves who may have some questions about the application, we take a vote, and then that vote gets delivered back to our elected officials, who become the final arbiter of the discussion this evening. So that's the process. Okay? So, gentlemen, just so you're aware, we did continue the other case from Haber a couple of weeks ago, but the way it's showing on my agenda tonight, we're going to begin with ZPA case 08002, which is Identity Services LLC, and this is for McDonald's. And the request is for a variance for a 3-square-foot canopy sign, a variance for a 33-foot wall sign, and a variance for 2 additional wall signs on the west building elevation. And the location is 678 Northwest Highway. And at this time, we'll pass it over to Mr. Simmons for further review.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As mentioned, this proposal is related to the existing McDonald's restaurant within the village over on Northwest Highway in the Cary Square Shopping Center. The property is zoned B2 Shopping Center Business and has been utilized since the day that the building was built as a McDonald's restaurant back in 1984. As mentioned, the petitioner is seeking approval of essentially 4 variances, 2 related to larger signs, and then 2 variances for 2 additional wall signs on 1 building elevation. As some of you may have noticed, the restaurant is currently going under a remodeling effort. The petitioner is, or the owner is upgrading the facade of the building, which includes kind of a rebranding of all of their local storefronts. They've done other similar construction projects in nearby communities and are now working on the upgrade to this facility. As part of the upgrade, they are proposing to install new signage to identify the restaurant. The slide in the upper right-hand image, along with the table, shows the location of all of the signs that are proposed. The existing monument sign, which is on the corner of the intersection next to the traffic signal, would remain and will not be changing in size or scope, but they will be proposing to install signs on both the east, south, and west elevation, which are all 33 square foot wall signs, and then 2 signs on both the north and west elevation that would have the McDonald's symbol. That would be roughly 14 square feet. In addition to the sign on the north elevation, they are proposing a canopy sign, which would be about 3 square feet in size. More detail on the north and south elevations are provided in this slide. As you can see, the upper image is the north building elevation. That's the elevation that faces towards the shopping center. And the vacant Hallmark space is adjacent to that storefront. They're proposing to install one wall sign, which is approximately 14 square feet, which is the McDonald's Arches portion on the center projection of the building. And then a second sign would be proposed on the canopy, which is proposed to be a 3 square foot sign. Per the village's sign requirements, the maximum size that they can have on a canopy is 20% of that canopy surface area, which in this case for that one canopy, as you can see in the center portion of the building, is where the sign will be affixed. Due to the narrow length of that canopy, the sign will approximately be 3 times the square footage that would be allowed. If the sign were to be installed on either the canopy that was to the west or the east of that entrance, the proposed signage would be permissible under the maximums that are allowed. The petitioner is proposing to keep in this location as on either side of this bump out in the building is where you would enter into the building from a customer standpoint, so they want to keep that welcome sign directly above the entrance. Additionally, on the south side of the building, this is the facade that faces towards Northwest Highway. They are permitted one wall sign along this facade, which cannot exceed either 72 square feet or the lesser of 5% of the building frontage. Due to the width of the building in this location, the maximum size that they can have per code is a 22 square foot sign, and they're requesting a variance to increase that minimum or maximum percent size to 33 square feet. On the east and west elevations, the east elevation, which is the top image on the right-hand side of the slide, they're permitted a wall sign along that facade that can go up to 72 square feet based off the length of the building. As proposed, the 33 square foot sign would comply with code, so there's no relief that's requested for that sign. The west elevation, however, as that does not face the parking lot or the interior of the site, they're permitted under our code. The property is permitted one wall sign that would face if it was an outlet, they're permitted one sign that faces towards the shopping center. The sign that was on the north elevation would count towards that sign, so these 2 additional signs here would require variation approval in order to be installed. As shown in the slide, the 2 signs would be the same size of the other signs proposed on both the north and the east elevation. The McDonald's channel letter sign would be 33 square feet, and the Golden Arches sign of the M would be 14 square feet, or a combined 47 square feet, which would be less than the 72 square feet if they were to be installed on the east building elevation. Altogether, all the signs would comply with our maximum aggregate requirement that requires that all signage on a property not exceed more than 1 square foot per linear foot of building frontage. For the subject property, the lineal frontage of the building is about 260 square feet. The total sign area of all the signs that are proposed, the wall signs, including the monument sign, would be just over 200 square feet. So although there are variances that are required for the additional signage, they are not proposed to our maximum size that's allowed within the code, so they will still comply with our maximum aggregate square footage of signage for the property. As with any variances that are proposed, there's certain standards that need to be met to support those variances, which are summarized in the slide. The applicant can provide more information related to the requests, but essentially that the relief proposed will not alter the character of the locality, that the applicant has not taken any action that has caused the extraordinary condition and made it substantially worse, in addition to other conditions here as well. In the subject case, if the ZPA determines that the various standards have been met, it is recommended that the ZPA approve a motion which would grant a variance for a 3 square foot canopy sign, variance for a 33 square foot wall sign on the south elevation, and then 2 additional wall signs on the west building elevation for the subject property. And those would be subject to the conditions that are listed in your staff report. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have about this case.
Thank you, Mr. Simmons. Gentlemen, questions? You can think about it, Mr. Jasper. I've got a
Yeah,
couple of
well, I'm trying to think about how to.
Well, can I ask a clarifying question then in advance? Because I just
Yeah, go
wanted,
ahead.
I think I misspoke when I opened up the meeting here. I'm recalling the implementation of the UDO.
Mhm.
And my recollection now that I'm thinking about this on a variance, we said very specifically that it requires 4 positive votes, correct?
That's correct.
Yes. And my recollection of the UDO also is that signage does not require, it gets finalized here?
Correct. So
Yeah.
and I failed to mention that as well. So from a review standpoint, this board would be making the final decision. It's not a recommendation to the village board on all the variances that are requested here this evening would be final at this level.
Yeah. So Brian, apologies. We implemented a new program back in May. It's called the UDO, Unified Development Ordinance. And this would be the amongst the first cases. So I just wanted all of the members to be aware and yourself that that's the requirement, okay? Okay, very good. So, Mr. Jasper,
Yeah, did I hear correctly? You said that the signs that are proposed to go in will be very similar to signs within the rest of the shopping centers with, the rest of the buildings within the area?
Correct. Yes. Yeah, from a similar comparison standpoint, other outlet buildings that are in the area, specifically the Wendy's, Starbucks, even Golden Eagle Bank, which now is the Advia Credit Union, they've received similar variations to what is being requested this evening. Under our new regulations, again, the maximum percentage of signs that's allowed would still comply for this. So although the number is increased, they would comply with how much square footage they're allowed to have. But it's similar to other buildings that are in the area.
Okay. My concern on all this is we, end up approving this and we end up with the same thing that Chicago ended up with when a certain individual built a building in Chicago and put his name up on it. That completely surprised everybody in the city. We're not worrying about the sign becoming exponentially larger than anything else around it.
No, and I think also with the conditions that are proposed within the report limits the size to what is being presented here, so that the signage would still be consistent on all the facades. So if they do replace them, they still would need to comply with these conditions or come back for additional relief in the future.
thank you. Gentlemen, any other questions? All right, so Brian, forgive me, I don't know your last name, but if you'd like to comment further when you address the group here, if you'd just be kind enough to state your name, first name, last name, and address.
So my name is Brian Shaner, 1106 North Highland Avenue in Arlington Heights, Illinois.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So did you have any further comments that you wanted to offer around the petition?
No, other than obviously McDonald's is very brand centric. They have their brand, they have their branding, which is very important to them. And everything that's shown here is pretty much a standard. There's nothing that's outside of their standards that's shown here. This is a brand standard on most every store, other than a couple in Chicago. But yeah, this is pretty standard for them.
Gentlemen, questions for the petitioner? I have one, Mr. Shaner. So I assume you work with them around more than one location. Is this now the standard around the world or just in the United States?
This is pretty much the standard throughout the United States. You get into the other countries, obviously we don't do that work out there, but
Right.
from what I've seen, they haven't really changed. They haven't changed their logo other than a bolder gold, and kind of the modernization of their signage. But I mean, I've seen stuff from other countries, and it's the same idea, could be different language, and it makes it look slightly different.
Sure.
But right now, this going forward, this is what we've been doing for probably the last 3 years. So I've worked with McDonald's for over 30 years, and probably in the next few years, they'll change something and redo everything again.
There you go. All right. Well, thank you very much.
No problem.
Oh, so I have no further questions, Mr. Shaner. So what we do now is that we typically open it up to the public. And so let me just see if there's anyone in the public who'd like to comment on this petition. So hearing none, we'll close the public portion of our meeting. And now it's up to the gentleman to see, and you're welcome to be seated again if you like, to see if there's any questions amongst the committee members about this application. Okay, gentlemen, so hearing none, let me just get back to
Where's
the motion.
the motion?
So the chair will entertain a motion to approve variances for a 3-square-foot canopy sign, 33-square-foot wall sign, and 2 additional wall signs on the west building elevation for the property located at 678 Northwest Highway, subject to the conditions listed in the staff report.
So moved.
Second. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Any additional questions on the motion? Mr. Simmons, would you call the roll?
Kretschmer,
Yes.
Jasper,
Yes?
Williams,
Yes.
Pippin,
Yes.
O'Laughlin,
Yes.
Corey.
Yes. So, Mr. Shaner, you have a positive recommendation.
Positive vote.
Nope.
It's supported.
I'm sorry.
It's fine.
Yep. You're under the new,
It's not a recommendation.
it's not a recommendation.
Yes, well, I guess I'm looking for the right words. Approval. Thank you, Mr. Laughlin. That's how new it is. And, yeah, so I guess my question now is that in terms of the process, he's finalized tonight? Does he need to work with staff further?
Correct. So we'll draft a resolution that reflects the approvals. I'll forward that off to Ann I've been working with. So somebody would just need to sign that to accept the conditions that are here this evening. We'll execute on our end, and then after that, you're able to apply for the permits.
We are able to, with obviously the other stuff that had, I mean, the store's under construction, we did drive through yesterday.
Mhm.
So the view that is approved, we can move forward on that, correct? We already have permits.
Yeah, so essentially there's an appeal period, so somebody has a chance within 5 days of this meeting to appeal the decision here. So generally we wait until the end of next week before it's official. What we need to have before we can install those signs, we need to accept the conditions that are approved here this evening in that resolution, and then wait for that 5-day period to end. But from then, yes, if you have the permits, we'd be able to install the signs at that point.
He's planning on the opening, I believe, the beginning of the store will
Yep.
close this week.
Should be an issue. We can make that. Mhm.
But I have to be able to get here, hopefully, we have it done.
Sure.
Ideally, by the time he would be
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's doable.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Wish you continued success.
Thank you.
All right, good luck with the project.
Appreciate it.
You bet. All right, gentlemen, so at this time, I'm going to...
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Before we move on, just want to ask a question. There was a comment made that most of the, before the UDO, most of the other buildings had, doesn't involve you. You're good.
Are you welcome to stay? if you-
Yeah, by all means.
We're not going to deny you
No, we're
as
not-
you walk out
we're
the
not
building, you
changing
know.
anything. But you said most of the other buildings needed a variance as well. If what we're approving appears to be standard, at what point do we stop and say maybe we ought to change the UDO rather than making everybody come in for a variance?
Sure. From the UDO perspective, we did modify it so that it would allow more signage. Where previously, in this particular case, they would have only been allowed signage on 2 building facades. So the code did change where it allowed that third side.
Right.
So there still will be cases where somebody will ask for more than what the code would allow, as is here.
So some of those other buildings under the new would not have had to come in
Correct.
for a variance?
Correct, yeah.
All right.
And in this case, if they wouldn't have proposed anything on the west elevation, didn't have the canopy sign,
They
they could
wouldn't
have,
have
yeah,
any-
the only would be the variance on the facing 14 just to the larger size of that sign. But certainly if we see over time that we're granting continues the same variation over and over again, that's the ability is there to amend the code.
Okay. Thank you.
Pleasure. Okay, gentlemen, so what I'm going to do at this time now is that I'm going to be recalling just bear with me. ZPA case 07001. This is going to be the petitioner Elm Tree Properties LLC. Are we looking at this one right here? I want to make sure I'm calling this.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Community High School District 155, map amendment to rezone from R1 to R3, approval of a planned development complex containing departures from the Unified Development Ordinance, and this is located at 400 Haber Road. You'll recall that we had asked the petitioner to work with staff on some of the concerns that we had expressed in the last meeting. And so at this time, Mr. Simmons will take us through that update.
Sure. And I'll be very brief. As the board recalls, we did have a lengthy discussion in our last meeting regarding the project. There were a few items that needed to be corrected. We've had conversations, both myself and the developer regarding the project. And I'll invite Mr. Cook up and he can give an overview of some of the changes that were made. But essentially, the main area that was modified is the western property line. The primary discussion we had the last meeting was related to some garage units that were proposed along that eastern property line and their 2-foot setback. The petitioner has modified the plan so some of those garages are repositioned around the property, and then the number is decreased slightly to accommodate. It won't provide one garage unit for every single unit, but there will be still garages provided on the property. So with that, I'll invite Mr. Cook up. You can go into a little bit more detail onto those issues, and if there's other questions that you may have regarding the petition, I'll be happy to walk through the plans and further as far as what approvals are being discussed this evening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Simmons. So, Mr. Cook, you might remember the procedure. That you just state your name and address for the record, please. And welcome back.
Dave Cook, 1204 Potter Road, Park Ridge.
Thank you very much. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me back, and thanks for the opportunity to make some changes. So as Brian mentioned, piggybacking on our last meeting, I think our biggest challenge that we walked away there with was just the garage setback that we had about along the east property line. I think we had 2 feet from the east property line to the garages. We revamped that east property line. As Brian mentioned, we repositioned some of those. We got to the requested 8-foot setback, or not setback, but the 8-foot green space along the east property line. We've got the landscaping required by code, both the shade trees, the shrubs, and the ornamental trees there. We moved a couple of garages around the property. I'm thankful we went through the process because I like this layout slightly better than what we had. I think it gives a little bit of more screening to duplex units. I believe that's 5. It's down on the east side there, so it helps shield that a little bit. And we are at 1.6 spaces per unit, which is still over the 1 space per unit requirement, and gives us what we think we need there. So we've got a total of 15 garages and 24 surface parking spaces. So 1 surface parking space for every unit, and garage spaces for roughly 60+% of the remainders.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. So let me just pause there for a moment to see if the gentlemen have questions for you about this part of the application.
I have one question, unless you were going to
No.
ask it. Okay.
Your specialty.
Actually, 2 questions. One is, I noticed in the drawings from last time to this time, and I don't even know how to explain it, the western drive to that right through there up to the behind the current duplexes, that was taken out, that curve?
Correct. We had discussions actually prior to our last meeting with both the petitioner and the fire department.
Yeah.
Fire was comfortable with, pardon me, get the cursor back up, with a dead-end fire lane to this point, so that in the case of emergency, a medical emergency, they would likely access the property through the front of the building, this location.
Yep.
In a fire emergency, they would access through the back to this point, and in that event, they were comfortable with being able to back out their apparatus from this property back out of the site.
Okay.
The issue in this area is there are some steeper grades, so to be able to make that turn to come back up to that driveway, it's very difficult, and even for a regular vehicle versus a fire apparatus to make that turn. So they were fine with that being removed from the plan.
Okay, yeah. And then that answers my second question as to, because we had talked about the circled seating area actually being a turnaround for the fire department, so we don't need that. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Laughlin. Mr. Jasper?
No, we're on the same page.
Okay, gentlemen?
I do have one. Has either the village engineer or one of the village's engineering consultants had a chance to look at this plan and review it? Because my concern is I'm only seeing one storm sewer line here down on the, I guess it would be the northeast corner of the property. So it looks like that's an awful lot of area to surface drain. Now I see that we got quite a slope over here on the southern end of the property, but I mean, I would certainly defer to their expertise, but it's just something I wanted to point out.
Good observation.
Yeah, certainly from a engineering standpoint, it's a preliminary engineering plan, so there are comments that our code consultant provided for stormwater to be able to provide drainage into the basin, so that there may be additional structures and sewer lines that are required to properly drain the property versus surface drainage.
Okay, great. Thank you.
But that's a good question. Those would be finalized at final engineering stage.
Okay.
Anything else, Mr. Pittman?
No, that was it.
Gentlemen, anything else? Okay, Mr. Cook, was there anything else that you wanted to offer?
No,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you very much. So ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we will open this part of the meeting up. You'll recall we left this part of the meeting open from the last time to
You're not going
continue
to open,
it.
you're going to,
I'm sorry?
you're not going to open, you're going to continue.
Exactly. So is there anyone that would like to speak at this time? Okay, then we will now close that part of the meeting. And gentlemen, before I call the motion, I just want to double check something with Mr. Simmons, because I think on the recommendations, there were some date changes made, and I just want to make sure that you're all clarified on that issue.
Correct. So in the memo that you should have received indicated that there would be potential changes to conditions 1 and 5 that are in the staff report based off waiting for revised plans to be submitted. Essentially, the changes to condition 1 is just to update the dates that are in the conditions A, B, and C related to the received dates and revisions for the site plan, landscape plan, and grading plan. So that recommendation references the plans that are on the dais this evening. And then condition 5 was a recommendation for a departure for lot coverage up to 55%. Based off the revised plans, that proposed number is at 53%. So that recommendation for condition 5 would just be to change from 55 to 53% for the
good.
properties.
Okay.
Any questions about that, gentlemen? Nope. Okay, and unless there's any other question, gentlemen, I'll call the motion. The chair will entertain a motion to recommend to the Village Board of Trustees, 1, approval of a map amendment to rezone the subject property located at 400 Haber Road from R1 Single Family Residential to R3 Multifamily Residential, and 2, approval of a 46-unit plan development with zoning departures subject to the conditions listed in the staff report.
So moved.
Second.
I heard Mr. Pippin first, so thank you, gentlemen.
More forceful.
I'm sorry?
He's more forceful.
I've known Mr. Jasper many years. I would tell you that he too can be rather.
I was going to say.
More enthusiastic.
No, it wasn't me that.
Better. I like that. All right. Okay, gentlemen, any additional comments on the motion? Okay, would you call the roll, Mr. Simmons?
Jasper?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Pippin?
Yes.
O'Laughlin?
Yes.
Kretschmer?
Yes.
Corey?
Yes. Okay, so on this one, Mr. Cook, as we proceed through the evening, this one does require continued review with our elected officials. They become the final arbiter. This is a little bit new for us, as you know, the UDO. In the past, when we've done projects like this, traditionally, it goes on a consent agenda when it's all positive reviewed. But I think there may be some additional requirements for yourself. But my best suggestion tonight will be to stay in close coordination with Mr. Simmons, because he'll have a better line of sight on this than I would.
Sure.
Yeah, so we'll wish you continued success. Thank you for your flexibility. Yeah, all right. And
And just so I can say for the public's sake as well, that case will be heard by the village board, or be scheduled for our village board, the first meeting in October, which is the first Tuesday in October. It may be October 1st, if I'm not mistaken. But it'll be the first Tuesday of the month at 6 o'clock in the same location.
that's correct, it is.
Yep.
Okay, gentlemen, so I just want to double check with Mr. Simmons about any future meetings that we're aware of tonight.
Nothing pending or scheduled at this point, so once I receive another petition, I'll advise the board of an anticipated meeting coming forward.
Very good. So gentlemen, anything else that you wanted to cover before we adjourn?
So moved.
Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
Everybody in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much, gentlemen.